It's got to clearly depend on how bad the shot is, though. Because if you get fouled and knocked unconscious and then you come back,
you're just going to get knocked out.
Yeah.
If you get knocked out, that's why boxing, right?
Comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms.
It's like a big part of it is speed.
Anthony Joshua possesses that explosive speed that completely transforms every moment inside the squared circle. When Joe Rogan broke down his reaction to Jake Paul ending up hospitalized following that brutal Anthony Joshua knockout, his genuine worry about what had unfolded was impossible to miss. During his conversation with Daniel Cormier, Rogan dissected just how utterly crushing that connection appeared when it landed flush. He highlighted the sheer force generated by that shot before diving into much deeper territory, making it crystal clear that professional boxing represents one of the most perilous sports imaginable. We're talking about danger levels that everyday viewers often overlook completely. Rogan explained how fighters absorbing clean shots at elite levels, the type of perfect placement witnessed in this contest, face consequences that extend far beyond the immediate moment. This isn't about having a rough evening or needing a weekend to bounce. Rogan emphasized how unpredictable these outcomes become in combat sports, with impacts like these potentially creating lifelong damage that haunts fighters permanently. The worry was evident in his tone when describing how completely unconscious someone appears during these instances. Despite Joshua controlling the boxing exchanges throughout the remaining round after that devastating moment, the real harm had already occurred. That's simply the reality when competing at this elite level.
And we got the outcome that we all expected. After the fight, though, Jake told Ariel Helwani that he was worried that he had broke his jaw. He said multiple times he was concerned that he had a fractured jaw. And certainly looking at this knockout punch that Anthony Joshua delivered, it is absolutely a possibility that Jake does in fact have a jaw fracture. I'd honestly be more concerned about a concussion. In fact, with most jaw fractures, the more important thing initially is to look for other injuries to the head, to the neck, to the airway. The jaw fracture potentially being there or not is going to be lower on the list often than whether there's damage to the airway, damage to the head. And so very possible to have a concussion or some residual symptoms from this, as Jake Paul's head is relatively still here. We see AJ comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms. But you can see where the punch comes in, landing square on that left side of Paul's face. Jake's reaction was pretty telling too. Right away after it, we could see him going down on the canvas here and being very shocked. It doesn't look like there's any obvious deformity to the jaw. We won't necessarily always see a deformity to the jaw, but you could tell he clearly had realized that something serious had happened there and feeling the full power of AJ's right. And finally, on this last view, we can see a little bit better the exact location where the punch comes in. We'll talk about our jaw anatomy, the different areas of the bones, but your temporomandibular joint, where your jaw articulates with the rest of your skull, is sitting right around in this area, and the jaw is roughly coming down in this orientation. And so where that punch comes in from Joshua is a little bit more kind of flush right in the center of the mandible, but also up close near that temporomandibular joint.
Joe Rogan. Medical expert Brian Sutterer analyzed the knockout's aftermath with the composed clinical approach that helped viewers grasp exactly what Jake Paul's system endured during that encounter. His explanation revealed how the fight's conclusion matched what most boxing insiders had anticipated. While the competitive results surprised nobody, genuine alarm emerged when Jake Paul publicly expressed concerns about a potentially fractured jaw, transforming this into a serious medical discussion. Sutterer made his position unmistakably clear regarding the fracture possibility being completely realistic, considering how Anthony Joshua's power punch connected perfectly along Jake's left facial area. Every element pointed toward potential bone damage. The angle was perfect, the power was devastating, the placement was surgical. But here's where the situation becomes genuinely frightening. Sutterer stressed how concussion concerns would actually overshadow jaw injuries from any medical standpoint. While fractured jaws create significant pain and complications, they typically become secondary priorities when life-threatening risks emerge involving head trauma, neck damage, or airway complications. The violent snapping motion of Jake's Jake's skull from that punch likely created intense rotational forces throughout his brain and brainstem, with rotational trauma dramatically elevating concussion probabilities. Though Jake avoided complete unconsciousness in the classic sense, Sutterer emphasized how delayed complications remained very real possibilities, requiring careful observation. Jake's immediate confusion and response inside the ring demonstrated his awareness that something devastating had occurred, written across his expression and physical reaction.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
What do you think about Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua?
Boy. Well, realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. Maybe we should watch the Francis Ngannou fight so you could see. Let's watch that real quick, just so you can see what Anthony Joshua is capable if he's fighting someone that's not in his league. Okay, look, Usyk beat him, and he beat him twice, and Andy Ruiz caught him in the first fight and dropped him and stopped him. It was spectacular.
Joe Rogan had already forecasted disaster for Jake Paul before the opening bell, and reviewing his prediction now reveals startling accuracy. His analysis focused on Jake's pattern of selecting older, retired opponents who had clearly passed their peak performance years. This situation presented something entirely different though, stepping up against one of the planet's elite heavyweights, someone actively competing, genuinely threatening, still operating within their prime competitive phase. Rogan cautioned his listeners that this skill gap would prove both dangerous and merciless, explaining how this scenario bore no resemblance to Jake's previous contests, where certain advantages or carefully planned opponent selection existed. The circumstances here represented uncharted territory.
I initially watched the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight. I think I would say that my conclusions now still match most of what I said when I was watching on the initial broadcast, which is that Joshua, he did look a little rusty to me. I'm sorry, but he did. That Jake is, probably a little bit better than we suggested he might be. When I say we, I mean like the hardcore fight community, the fight fans, the people who work in the industry to a degree. Sometimes there is a suggestion that he can't do anything. And I would be like, well, that's a little much. He can do stuff. I mean, it's limited what he can do. It's very limited what he can do. But there is a little bit too much anger towards him sometimes, or just dismissiveness, maybe is a better way to put that. And I don't really co-sign on some of that. He's got some ability. He's not good. Listen to me very carefully. He's not good. But is he the caricature that he is sometimes made out to be in terms of his pure boxing skill? I think it goes a little overboard sometimes. But that isn't the reason why I wanted to make this video. What I wanted to make this video about is two things. One, after the fight was over, I got on social media and people were like hugely negative about the fight. And I did not think that the fight was good. In fact, I thought the fight was, like most Jake Paul fights, pretty bad, although him surviving kind of feeds into the story of him being perhaps a little bit better than we sometimes think, although I don't really co-sign on that. Let me make the point. The first point is, I think people are overreacting a little bit. A little bit. People were suggesting when I got on social media that this was like the biggest farce they'd ever seen in their life, and that this was, how could he fight like this, and this was a disaster, and Joshua should have got him out there earlier. There is probably some evidence to suggest that I don't think Joshua was carrying him in the sense of, hey, they coordinated this ahead of time. But was Joshua really stepping on the gas? No, I don't think he was really stepping on the gas. There were times I think he clearly pulled his punches.
Jake Paul's decision to face Anthony Joshua created massive ripple effects throughout professional boxing, generating passionate responses from every section of the fighting community, while certain supporters quickly celebrated Jake's bravery and determination to challenge such a formidable opponent. With plenty of people acknowledging that courage, numerous respected boxing authorities strongly rejected this celebratory narrative. Luke Thomas emerged as one of the most vocal critics opposing the praise Jake Paul garnered, delivering an unfiltered breakdown of the situation. His position highlighted how reactions surrounding this contest seemed completely overblown and removed from the actual ring events. Thomas argued that observers were celebrating Jake's survival rather than any legitimate competitive performance, emphasizing the massive distinction between these concepts in professional boxing. His observations noted how Anthony Joshua clearly fought with obvious restraint, deliberately reducing his power output throughout multiple exchanges. The controlled aggression was visible for anyone paying close attention. Thomas's viewpoint, which he expressed without hesitation, characterized this as far removed from genuine professional boxing competition, instead resembling a managed scenario where an elite heavyweight demonstrated remarkable restraint and sportsmanship. Jake's showing failed to exhibit skill development, improvement, or strategic awareness, suggesting legitimate progress as a serious professional boxer. Thomas concluded that Jake appeared completely outmatched for most exchanges, struggled to meaningfully engage with Joshua's tactical approach, and showed no authentic intention to win or compete at any respectable standard.
We all know he broke his jaw. We all know we've seen the x-ray. There is a video of the x-ray that he showed us on his Instagram, so that was no AI. And it showed where his jaw had to be reconstructed and, wired, right? So he can't have any hard foods for a while. And again, I think Jake Paul is going to get respect for that, because it's one thing, because we all know about Jake. I think the problem with Jake was he was bullshitting us by giving us fights that we didn't want to see, for one, and for two, wasn't giving us fights most of the time of the people that could beat him. He gave us Tommy Fury, and then Tommy Fury actually beat him, which, whatever. But he did drop Tommy Fury with a left hook, so that was an impressive thing he did against the guy. Can't say the only guy now, because AJ fought him and knocked him out. But, other than that, though, fighting Mike Tyson, Anderson Silva, which Anderson Silva showed that he is still very dangerous and very, very, ready at 50 years old. You know what I mean? Like, what he did to Tyron Woodley was classic Anderson Silva. He picked his shots. You know what I mean? He moved with grace, he moved with wisdom, and he knew exactly what to do. And again, he should have went over to boxing a long time ago, but Jake beat him. So that just made Jake's, stock rise, right?
Lawrence Ozwaki examined the situation from his own perspective, ultimately reaching equally harsh conclusions about the entire spectacle. His focus centered on boxing's fundamental dangers and the significance of entering that professional environment. Ozwaki stressed how single errors inside the ring can instantly terminate fights. Your celebrity status, online presence, or training preparation becomes meaningless in those moments. From his standpoint, Jake Paul's decision to face someone like Anthony Joshua represented reckless behavior that potentially threatened Jake's future well-being. Ozwaki highlighted boxing's unforgiving nature compared to other athletic competitions, arguing how dangerous mismatches don't become justified simply through generating publicity or television revenue. He characterized this fight selection as both unnecessary and reckless, pointing out how easily the final outcome could have produced even more severe consequences than what actually occurred. Despite heavy criticism from experienced voices like Thomas and Ozwaki, some commentators recognized Jake Paul's capacity to absorb punishment while continuing to compete. After the contest, reports emerged of Jake requiring hospitalization for serious jaw trauma needing professional medical assessment. Certain analysts interpreted this as demonstrating genuine toughness and psychological strength. Their argument suggested that regardless of performance quality, Jake displayed real courage by entering the ring against someone possessing Joshua's abilities and professional experience. These reactions emphasized mental resilience and determination over technical boxing skills and fundamental competency. Even among those offering limited recognition, though, praise never extended to endorsing Jake as a credible professional boxer capable of competing at this standard. The discussion focused on bravery rather than legitimate ability or measurable skill progression. Absorbing damage while continuing holds respect within boxing tradition, but alone cannot establish establish a legitimate professional career. Courage without competitive ability doesn't transform a fighter's position within the sport. While Jake's injury demonstrated the physical price of accepting this fight, it simultaneously reinforced questions about whether such contests should occur considering safety and sporting integrity.
Standing in that ring thinking, for my own credibility, I've got to knock you out, but I've got to try and knock you out where I'm not hurting you as much as what I could if I unleashed.
Yeah.
And with the punch you said that he landed, it's not his best punch,
It's
his
an arm
most
punch,
powerful
mate.
punch,
It's an
right?
arm punch.
Yep. And he's shattered his jaw in 2 places, right? So Anthony Joshua gets his 70 million, 60, whatever it is. But I think he's sitting there thinking, thank God for that. Thank God. On a human level, I've come out, all right, I've sort of, not reputation, but I haven't hurt him as bad as
Mate,
what I could have.
There should be an awful amount of people breathing a massive sigh of relief. Anybody that put that fight together, athletic commissions, like you
Well,
said,
it wasn't a fight.
no,
was
it wasn't at all. Like you said, it was a prize
Yes.
fight. It was an event. If Anthony damages him, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of stress to deal with. You know what I mean? So I'm sure he's bleeding inside of relief. The team that have put him in there, that have negotiated that for him, but the authorities that put that on and commissioned it as a proper boxing match, I've no doubt.
Does that go on his... Because
Yeah, it's a professional boxing.
do you know what? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would be saying I don't want that on my record.
Well,
But for the credibility of them putting the fight on, they would have said to him, "No, we've got to say this. It's been commissioned. It's going to be a proper fight." And I found it. I love my boxing, but I just find the whole thing really, really unedifying. You said about get followers. You mentioned Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is nowhere near his level of getting like a British title fight or whatever. Nowhere near. So it's basically he's like,
Beat Jake Paul.
well, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, beat Jake Paul. But so
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that that's 100. I stand by that, and I think Tommy would admit that. You know what I mean? To become a British champion is a very prestigious thing to do, and I think he would struggle to do that.
yeah, but
True Jarity provided more balanced yet still fundamentally critical assessment of the complete situation. He recognized Jake Paul's personal journey and entertainment industry success as compelling from a human perspective. The personal history, training dedication required, and ambition to pursue professional boxing contained genuinely inspiring elements on an individual level that deserves acknowledgement. However, when evaluating the actual fight performance, True Jarity clearly stated that Jake failed to deliver anything substantial. He observed that Jake never appeared like someone genuinely pursuing victory or believing victory was possible. His ring movement stayed cautious and protective. His attacking efforts lacked genuine commitment and force, and his complete ring presence suggested survival instincts rather than competitive drive. True Jarity emphasized how boxing evaluation depends on ring actions and official scorecards, not personal backgrounds or inspiring narratives. While Jake's transformation from internet personality to professional boxer might motivate certain people, the performance itself provided nothing remarkable from either sporting or technical perspective. The jaw fracture became representative, not of courage, but of inevitable consequences when skill differences get ignored and fight arrangements prioritize entertainment value over competitive fairness. £6 million reportedly formed part of the financial structure, revealing this as much a business arrangement.
Anything else? Really hard fight for me to evaluate because on the one hand, you know, Jake's come a long way, so you want to give him credit for that. But on the other hand, you want to get in there with AJ. You want to talk about you're going to beat AJ up and then you fight in a certain way. It's very hard for me to kind of give the right amount of credit and criticism here because the backstory is so inspiring, but the performance was not inspiring in some ways. I think for me now, I just want to see Jake Paul in a fucking competitive fight. And that's the problem with the direction he's been going in, is he puts on big fights but not competitive fights. Fighting Chavez Jr., that was an easy win. Nate Diaz, an easy win. Mike Tyson, an easy win. Anthony Joshua, not competitive for the opposite reason. He's completely not expected to win and it wasn't competitive. He stacks the chips too heavily either way, and because of that we never actually get to find out how good Jake is, and part of that I think is maybe deliberate because then we never know and the storyline can go anywhere. And while you don't know really how good he is, there's always another dream to sell, and it's almost genius level promoting. It really is. But for his own sake, you know, you're getting into your late 20s now, your physical prime, you're only going to ever find out how good you really are by getting in there with people who are of the level that you claim you're at the right weight class. you are not a cruiserweight. You've got a layer of, body fat on you. You can't be doing that in boxing. If you're a serious boxer, you don't get in there looking like Jake Paul looks. You look shredded. And that's why really he's a light heavyweight. But like, fuck it. If you want to be cruiserweight, be a cruiserweight. Regardless, just fight people who are now like ranked. And let's find out where the fuck he is. Because surely, these money grab Tyson fight, the AJ fight, he's packed that bank chock full. And credit to him. Even if he has hustled people or whatever the fuck, credit to him. One of the best promoters in boxing history, actually. I really do believe that. Because even when fights seem ridiculous, he always gets people to tune in.
Luganagi delivered some of the harshest post-fight criticism. As a former world champion with extensive elite-level experience, his boxing standards remain absolutely uncompromising. He completely dismissed this contest, calling it unserious and non-competitive from any legitimate boxing perspective. Luganagi stated directly that Jake Paul never attempted victory, instead concentrating on lasting as long as possible without sustaining major damage. He criticized Jake's repeated defensive tactics of dropping to one knee during exchanges, treating this bout like entertainment rather than authentic professional competition between legitimate boxers. Luganagi's frustration stemmed from deep respect for boxing and understanding what elite success demands. His argument highlighted how boxing careers develop through sacrifice, discipline, and years of genuine hardship. This means endless gym hours, punishing sparring sessions, and fights in empty venues to gain real experience. Watching someone enter the ring under completely different circumstances while receiving attention and praise for basic survival felt disrespectful to those dedicating their entire lives to mastering this craft. From his viewpoint, this fight contributed nothing positive to professional boxing and potentially damaged the sport's reputation among serious supporters.